The Galactic Federation's Central Archive was not a place of warmth. It was a cold, beautiful monument built from crystal and light. Knowledge here was stored in shimmering data spheres that floated in silent halls. The beings who worked here moved with grace and quiet purpose. There were the Ullians, who floated like living veils of silk. There were the K-Tari, who clicked and tapped with their 4 careful hands as they worked. They were elegant. They were advanced. They were peaceful. J. Kim felt like a clumsy child among them. He was a human. He walked on 2 legs. He had only 2 arms. His steps made sound on the smooth floors. His presence was solid and loud in the quiet. He was a xenolinguist, a scholar of languages and stories. His job was to study the old tales of species that existed before the Federation was formed. It was boring work to most. To Jay, it was a puzzle, and one piece of the puzzle kept coming back to him. It was a file labeled The Devourers of Silence. It was not in the main history database. It was in the folklore section, with the myths and children's stories. The file was a mess. It was made of broken pieces of data from many different species. Some pieces showed the Devourers as giants. They were kind. They shaped nebulas with their hands and placed stars in the sky. Other pieces were darker. They described monsters that ate suns and shattered planets with their shouts. The stories did not agree on what the Devourers did, but they all agreed on what they looked like. The image was always the same basic shape. A shape with 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head on top. A shape that looked exactly like Jay. He was studying a particularly old Qatari, carving on his screen when a shadow fell over him. Fascinating, is it not? A voice hummed. It was Counselor Vral, an Ullian. He was a high official. His body was a floating mass of fine blue tendrils. His voice came from a small device on his robe. A classic case of convergent myth-making. Many species dream of such powerful beings. They are archetypes. Shadows from our ancient pasts when we were small and the universe was big and scary. It is comforting to know they are only legends. Jay smiled. It was a human smile. He wondered if Vral understood it. It is very curious, Counselor. The similarities across different species are striking. Indeed, Vral said, his tendrils waving softly. But do not waste too much of your time, Scholar Kim. They are just stories. The universe is known now. It is mapped and peaceful. There are no monsters in the dark. With that, Vral floated away, leaving a faint smell of ozone behind. Jay's smile faded. He looked back at the carving. The legend was holding a star. But the way the lines were cut, it looked less like holding and more like crushing. His shift ended. He returned to his quarters. They were small and plain. The Federation provided everything he needed, but it never felt like home. The air smelled wrong. The light was too perfect. He pulled out a small, private data drive. It was not Federation technology. It was human. He connected it and brought up his personal files. The screen showed images of Earth, not the Earth of now, but the Earth of centuries past. He had old television shows, news broadcasts from the 21st century, music videos. The Federation's long-range scouts had detected humanity's earliest radio waves. They had listened to the chaotic, weak signals of old music and talk shows. Their computers had analyzed it. Their conclusion was that the source was a pre-sentient species, not yet ready for contact. A quiet, simple world. They had filed it away and forgotten about it. They had missed everything that came next. The digital age, the internet, the first fusion drives. They had looked at a baby's first words and decided the baby had nothing else to say. They never heard the conversations that came later. They never saw the ships being built. Humanity did not die out. It did not stay quiet. It learned. It grew. And then it left. It slipped away into the vast, unexplored spiral arms of the galaxy, leaving only those old, faint whispers behind. A soft chime came from the drive. A priority alert, coded in human encryption. Jay's heart jumped. He opened it. It was a relayed message, sent through a secret network of human communication nodes. The sender was Captain Tae-Shik Lee of the Earth Defense Force vessel Gwanggi-to. The message was short. ***, Federation core world, Lyris Prime, is under attack by an extragalactic force. Designation: the Swarm. Federation defenses are failing. They are losing. We are mobilizing. Stand by for updates. Do not reveal your position. **J, read the words 3 times. Lyris Prime was a major world, a hub of culture and trade. The Federation fleet was powerful. Their ships were works of art, miles long, armed with gravity beams and plasma lances. They could not be losing. But Tae-Shik would not say it if it was not true. Jay leaned back in his chair. He looked from the image on his screen, a laughing human family on a beach on Earth, to the stark Federation message about Lyris Prime. He thought of Counselor Vral. ***, they are just stories. There are no monsters in the dark. But the Federation had only been looking for monsters. They had not been looking for humans. They found a legend and dismissed it. They never considered that the legend might have been a warning. Not about mindless beasts, but about something else. About a species that had looked into the dark, understood the danger, and decided to become something quiet, something patient, and something very, very prepared. A cold feeling settled in Jay's stomach. It was not fear for himself. It was a dreadful understanding. The galaxy was about to change. The Federation, in its pride and peace, was about to meet a real threat. And when they looked for a savior, they would find only the legends they had ignored. The quiet, careful humans were done waiting. They were mobilizing. And Jay knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that the galaxy would soon learn the difference between a scary story and a soldier. The Federation thought the Devourers of Silence were a myth. They were about to learn what the myth was based on. They were about to hear the thunder that the stories had tried to describe. The battle for Lyris Prime was not a battle. It was an ending. From the bridge of his flagship, the Luminous Grace, Admiral Caithar watched the end of his world. His ship was a beautiful thing, a long curve of crystal and silver that shone with its own light. Now, that light was reflected in the fires of 1,000 dying ships. The enemy was called the Swarm. The name was simple and true. Their ships were not beautiful. They were jagged, like pieces of a broken planet. They did not fire lasers or plasma. They moved forward and simply ate. They absorbed the energy from the Federation's weapons. They launched clouds of small, fast craft that latched onto his ships and cut them apart. The Federation tactics, built on honor and precise strikes, were useless. This enemy did not duel. It consumed. Admiral, the Fourth Fleet is gone. The planetary shield is failing. The voice of his tactical officer was tight with panic. Caithar looked at the main screen. The beautiful blue and green world of Lyris Prime was now scarred with dark lines on its surface. Cities were burning. His home was burning. He had sent the calls for help. Every nearby Federation world had answered, and every fleet had been broken. There was nothing left. He opened a channel to all frequencies. His voice was heavy, the clicks of his Kaitari language slow with grief. This is Admiral Caithar. To all Federation vessels, we are broken. Lyris Prime falls. He took a shaky breath. Save whom you can. Retreat. Tell the Council. Tell them we were not enough. On the other side of the galaxy, in a place the Federation charts marked as empty void. A different fleet moved out. It did not shine. It did not glow. The human vessel Guanggaito was the color of old iron and cold space. Its shape was all angles and flat planes. Weapons were not displayed proudly. They were hidden behind heavy doors. It looked like a tool, not a treasure. Captain Tae-shik Lee sat in his command chair. The bridge was quiet, lit by the soft blue light of screens. His crew worked in focused silence. "Final readiness reports are in, Captain," said his first officer. "All ships are battle-ready?" Tae-shik nodded. He looked at the woman at the tactical station. "Su Min." "Your assessment?" Su Min Park did not look up from her screens. Her hands moved calmly over the controls. "The swarm's technology is based on energy absorption. Their outer layers convert weapon fire into power for their shields. Kinetic force bypasses this. Our railguns will be effective. Their small craft are fast but lightly armored. Our point defense network will eliminate them." "And their motherships?" Tae-shik asked. "Big and tough," Su Min said. "But slow. We hit them with kinetic kill missiles. We don't need to pierce their shield. We just need to hit them with something too big and too fast for them to eat." A young officer at the communication station, Ji Woo Choi, spoke up. "Captain, we are receiving the Federation's distress calls." "They are. They are losing badly." "Put it on speaker," Tae-shik said. The bridge filled with a chaos of sound. Cries for help in different languages. The static of broken communications. The final despairing order from Admiral Cathar. Asterisk, we are broken. Lyris Prime falls. Asterisk, the crew listened. No one spoke. The despair from the speakers was a physical weight in the room. Then Tae-shik moved. He stood up. Navigation. Plot the fastest course to Lyris Prime. Comms. Open a channel to the fleet. Ji Woo's fingers flew. "Channel open, sir." Tae-shik's voice was calm and clear. It carried across hundreds of human ships. "This is Captain Lee. You have heard the enemy. You have heard our neighbors call for help. We have trained for this. We have built for this. We are the answer to a question the galaxy forgot to ask. Follow the Guanggaito. Move out." The human fleet did not jump into warp with a flash of light. Their drives were built for stealth, not show. Space around their ships twisted and darkened. Then they were gone. They slipped into the faster-than-light stream like shadows. Near Lyris Prime, the survivors of the Federation fleet were trying to escape. Broken ships limped away. The swarm did not chase them. It was busy. It was turning its attention to the planet below to finish the job. Admiral Cathar, on his dying ship, saw a new alert on his sensor screen. A ripple in space, right at the edge of the battle. More swarm? His heart sank, but what came out of the ripple was not a jagged rock. It was a wall of dark metal. Ship after ship appearing silently. They were small compared to his flagship. They were ugly. They looked brutally simple. Who are they? His sensor officer whispered. Before Cathar could answer, a new voice came over the general channel. It was a voice he did not know. It spoke in perfect, unaccented galactic common. Federation forces. "This is Captain Tae-shik Lai of the Earth Defense Vessel Guanggaito. You are authorized to withdraw. We will handle the threat." The message was so calm, so certain. Cathar felt a flicker of wild, impossible hope. Then he looked at those plain, small ships. He opened a channel back, his voice rough. "Handle it? Captain Lei, your ships are tiny. Your technology reads as primitive. You will be annihilated. Save yourselves." The reply came immediately. There was no emotion in it. "You have your orders. Withdraw." The channel closed. Caithar stared. He had just given his own death order. Now this stranger was giving him an order to live. He did not know what to do. He watched. The swarm had noticed the new arrivals. A wave of those fast, deadly small craft turned away from the planet and streamed toward the human line. It was a cloud of death that had eaten his best fighters. The human ships did not move. They waited. Then they fired. It was not the bright, clean line of a laser. It was a storm. From the sides of the human ships, thousands of barrels launched solid metal slugs. They were moving so fast, they were just a blur. They hit the swarm craft, and where the Federation energy beams had been absorbed, these slugs just tore through. The delicate enemy fighters exploded into dust and fragments. Before Caithar could even understand what he was seeing, the second stage began. Around each human ship, smaller turrets spun to life. They fired a continuous hail of smaller projectiles, creating a buzzing, deadly cloud around their fleet. Any swarm craft that got close to the railgun storm was shredded by this wall of metal. The sound over the comms was terrifying. It was not the hum of energy weapons. It was the roar of ancient thunder, the crack of thousands of impacts, the scream of tearing metal. It was loud, violent, and messy. On the bridge of the Gwanggaeto, Su-min watched her screens. Primary swarm neutralized. Their larger vessels are moving into attack formation. Tae-shik nodded. Release the Sun Tzu wing. Target the lead motherships. Fire pattern Kessel. From the centers of the human fleet, a new type of missile launched. They were not smart. They were not elegant. They flew toward the giant swarm ships, and then, at a set distance, they blew apart. They did not blow apart into fire. They blew apart into millions of razor-sharp pieces of metal, filling space like a shotgun blast the size of a city. The swarm ships flew right into it. Their energy-absorbing shields were useless. The physical shrapnel ripped into their rocky hulls, cutting them apart from the outside in. Admiral Caithar watched, his compound eyes wide. He was not seeing a space battle. He was seeing a slaughter. This was not a fight. This was extermination. The humans were not using technology he didn't understand. They were using a principle he had forgotten. If you hit something hard enough, with enough physical force, it breaks. He thought of the old stories, the whispers of the devourers of silence. He had always pictured monsters with fangs and claws. He was wrong. The monsters from the dark did not have fangs. They had railguns, and they had come to save them. Silence. For the first time in days, the space around Lyris Prime was silent. The terrible noise of the human weapons had stopped. The last echoes of tearing metal and shattering rock faded into the void. Where the swarm armada had been, there was now only a wide, drifting field of debris, glinting dully in the light of the distant sun. On the bridge of the Gwanggaeto, the only sounds were the soft beeps of systems and the quiet breathing of the crew. Captain Tae-shik Lei let out a slow breath. Damage report. Su-min Park scanned her screens. Minor hits on the outer hull of the Joan of Arc. No breach. All other ships report green status. Point defense ammunition at 40%. Railgun capacitor banks are recharging. Casualties? None, sir. Not a single life pod fired. Tae-shik allowed himself a small nod. It was what they had trained for. It was what they had built for. But seeing it work, seeing the enemy that had crushed the mighty Federation broken so completely, was still a strange feeling. It was not joy. It was grim satisfaction. Open a channel to the fleet, he said. Ji Woo Choi, her face pale but her hands steady, activated the comm. Open, Captain. To all ships of the combined Earth fleet, Tae-shik said, his voice echoing in the quiet bridges of hundreds of vessels. The immediate threat is neutralized. You have done well. Stand by for recovery operations. We are not done yet, but for now, hold position. Across the way, on the broken, sparking bridge of the luminous grace, there was no such quiet. There was shock. The surviving Federation crew moved slowly, as if in a dream. They were not celebrating. They were trying to understand. Admiral Kadar stared at the sensor screen. It showed the human fleet, a dark and sturdy blot against the stars. It showed the planet, scarred but intact. It showed the remains of the enemy already being pushed into a harmless orbit by small human tug ships. It was over. He had given the order for the end, and then these creatures had rewritten it. Admiral, his communications officer said, voice trembling, "We are receiving a hail from the lead human vessel. The Guanga 2. Cathar straightened his cracked carapace, put it on screen. The main viewer shimmered. Instead of a view of space, it now showed the interior of the human ship's bridge. It was shockingly plain. No crystal, no art, no flowing lines. Just gray metal, functional screens, and sharp angles. In the center sat a human. He looked tired. He looked solid. He wore a simple dark uniform. "I am Captain Tae-Shik Lee," the human said. "I am Admiral Cathar of the Federation Third Fleet." Cathar's voice sounded old to his own ears. You saved our world. You saved what was left of my fleet. I do not have the words to thank you." He paused, the next question bursting from him. "Who are you?" "We are humanity," Tae-Shik said simply. "But your records. Our archives said your species was presentient. Quiet. You were a footnote." A faint, hard smile touched Tae-Shik's lips. "You listened to our childhood. You left before the conversation got interesting. We learned to be quiet for a reason. The universe is a dangerous place. We decided to listen and learn before we spoke." While the leaders talked, another meeting was happening. A smaller, faster human shuttle had docked with the main Federation command ship. Jae Kim, still in his Federation scholar's robes, stepped out into a hallway filled with smoke and the smell of burnt wiring. He was led to a private chamber. Counselor Vral was there. The alien's graceful tendrils were pulled tight against his body, a sign of deep distress. He floated before a window, staring at the human fleet. "Jay," Vral hummed, not turning. "Your people." "Yes, Counselor. The stories. The devourers of silence. It was you. All along." Jay walked to stand beside him. He looked at the human ships, seeing them with new eyes. They were not the beautiful ships of a storybook giant. They were tools of survival. "The stories were wrong, Counselor. We do not devour silence. We enforce it upon those who would bring violence. There is a difference." Vral finally turned. "Your weapons? They are so crude, so violent. The noise, they are effective," Jay said softly. "Your energy weapons are beautiful. They are also useless against an enemy like the swarm. We learned a long time ago that sometimes you must fight force with greater force. Simple physics." "You hid this from us," Vrel said, and there was a hint of accusation in his tone. "You never looked," Jay replied. There was no anger in his voice, only fact. "You classified us and forgot us. We took that as a gift. It gave us time to prepare. Not against you, against them." He pointed at the debris field. Back on the Guangato, Su Min approached the captain's chair. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking something up. A deeper scan of the swarm debris. There's a pattern. This wasn't their main force." Tae-Shik looked at her. "Explain. The debris composition, the engine signatures." This was a scout fleet. A big one, but still a scout. They were testing Federation defenses. The real invasion force is still coming. The weight of the victory suddenly felt lighter, more fragile. Tae-Shik turned back to the screen where Admiral Cathar waited. "Admiral, We have new data. The battle is won, but the war is not over. This was a probing attack. A larger swarm force is on its way. Cathar felt a new kind of coldness seep into him. They had barely survived the probe. How? How do you know this? Because we have been looking for them, Tashik said. For a very long time. We found their trails on the edges of the galaxy. We have been tracking their movement while you were building monuments. The words were not meant to be cruel, but they hit Cathar like physical blows. His pride, his civilization's pride, lay shattered like his ships. They had been so sure of their place in the universe. They had been blind. What do you need? Cathar asked, his voice hollow. We need to talk to your Federation Council, Tashik said. All of them. Now, the time for legends is over. The time for reality has begun. You have a choice. You can see us as the monsters from your old stories, be afraid of us, and try to face what is coming alone. He leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. Or you can see us as allies. You can learn from us. You can stand with us. But you must decide quickly. The screen went dark. In the quiet of his broken bridge, surrounded by the evidence of his failure, Admiral Cathar made his decision. He was a proud warrior of the Qatari. But he was not a fool. He had seen the future in the thunder of human guns. It was not a gentle future. It was not the peaceful, quiet future he had dreamed of. But it was a future where his people might survive. He turned to his communications officer. Get me the High Council, Priority Alpha. Tell them. Tell them the legends are real. And they want to talk. The chamber of the Galactic Federation High Council was the most beautiful room J. Kim had ever seen. It was a vast sphere. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft, shifting colors. The members of the council floated or sat on elegant platforms around the center. There were Ulians like Vral, Qatari like Admiral Cathar, and dozens of other species, each more graceful and exotic than the last. They were the rulers of a peaceful, advanced galaxy. J felt every eye on him. He stood on the simple metal platform that had been provided for the human delegation. It looked crude and ugly in this place of beauty. Next to him stood Captain Tae-Shik Lee. The captain did not wear ceremony robes. He wore his standard duty uniform, still marked with faint smudges from the battle. He looked like a soldier who had walked out of a workshop and into a palace. Counselor Vral floated forward. His voice, amplified, hummed through the chamber. Captains, Scholar, the Federation thanks you for your actions at Lyris Prime. You have saved millions of lives. We owe you a debt. Tae-Shik gave a small, sharp nod. Thank you, Counselor. But we are not here for thanks. We are here to deliver a warning. The swarm attack was a test. A larger force is coming. We estimate it will arrive at the edge of Federation space in less than 30 standard cycles. A murmur rippled through the council. A tall, slender being with skin like polished wood spoke. Your evidence for this claim? Our own long-range sensors have detected nothing. Sumin Park, who had been silent, held up a data slate. With permission, counselors, a holographic map sprung to life above them. It showed the galaxy. The Federation space was a bright, compact cluster of stars near the center. Faint, red trails were plotted far out on the spiral arm, moving inward. These are gravity wake signatures and residual radiation trails. The swarm moves by consuming small stellar objects. They leave a trace. You weren't looking for this kind of signature. We were. Admiral Cathar spoke from his platform, his voice stronger now. I have seen their weapons, counselors. I have seen our finest ships fail. I have also seen the humans fight. They are telling the truth. The danger is real. Another counselor, a being with multiple eyes, focused on Tae-Shik. Your methods are brutal. You reject energy weapons. You use primitive kinetic projectiles. You create wasteful, area-destroying explosions. Is this the only way your species knows? Violence and noise? Taishik's face remained calm. It is the way that works. Your energy weapons are elegant. They are also useless against the swarm's absorption technology. A rock does not stop a bullet because it is more advanced. It stops a bullet because it is hard, and the bullet is fast. We fight with physics, not pride. The room grew tense. The word primitive hung in the air. J felt he had to speak. Counselors, please. For generations, you have seen us as a quiet, simple species. You saw the first steps of a child and thought that was all there was. You did not see us learn to walk. You did not see us learn to run. We watched you. We learned your languages, your science, your art. We hoped for an invitation to join you. It never came. So we kept watching. And we saw threats you did not. We prepared differently. So you built an army, said the wooden-skinned counselor. We built a shield. Taishik corrected, his voice firm. A shield is not beautiful. It is heavy and plain. Its only purpose is to protect. That is what we have done. We have protected ourselves. And now we are offering to help protect you. Counselor Vral floated closer. And what do you want in return? For this? Protection? Taishik looked around the beautiful, fragile chamber. He looked at the beings who had known peace for 1,000 years. We want you to survive, he said simply. We want your art and your music and your knowledge to continue. We do not want to rule you. We do not want your resources. We want neighbors who are alive. That is all. There was a long silence. The offer was so plain, so unlike the complex treaties and trade agreements the Federation was used to. It was unsettling. The lead counselor, an ancient Ulian with tendrils the color of silver, finally spoke. Your offer is generous, Captain Lee, but your presence, it changes everything. You have hidden a great power. You have weapons that frighten us. How can we trust you? Jay answered before Taishik could. You trusted us when your ships were burning, he said softly. You trusted us when we said we would handle the threat. And we did. You can choose to fear what we are, or you can choose to trust what we have done. Admiral Cathar stood. Counselors. I was there. I gave the order to retreat. I prepared to die. These humans, these legends, they did not come to conquer. They came to save. They fight like nothing I have ever seen, because they have prepared for a monster we refuse to believe was real. I do not understand them, but I trust them with my life and with the lives of every being on Lyris Prime. I vote we accept their alliance. The debate lasted for hours. Fear argued with gratitude. Suspicion argued with the cold, hard evidence of the swarm debris. In the end, it was not a grand speech that decided it. It was a simple display dot at Taishik's signal. Su-Min projected a new image. It was a real-time feed from the human fleet. It showed not weapons, but their ships opening their large cargo bays. They were deploying construction drones. The drones were not building guns. They were building large, simple shield generators in a wide orbit around Lyris Prime. They were using raw asteroid material. They were building a wall. They are fortifying our world, Vral whispered, amazed. Not just yours, Taishik said. We will fortify every world along the predicted swarm invasion route. We will share the schematics for kinetic weapons your factories can build. We will train your pilots in new tactics. You do not have to fight like us, but you must be able to fight with us. The sight of the humans, without being asked, already working to defend a world that was not their own, broke the last of the resistance. The vote was called. The Galactic Federation formally entered into a defensive alliance with the species known as Humanity. As they left the chamber. Vral floated beside Jay. "It is not what I expected," the counselor hummed. "Neither did we," Jay admitted. He looked at Captain Lee's straight back as they walked to their shuttle. "We hoped for a party. We got a war. But at least now, we are not facing it alone in the dark." Back on the Guangedo, Ji Woo looked at her captain. "Sir, the first joint training exercises are scheduled with the Qatari fleet in 2 cycles. What should we teach them first?" Tae-shik looked out at the stars, at the Federation ships now flying alongside his own. They looked so delicate. "Teach them how to be hard," he said quietly. "Teach them that it is better to be ugly and alive than beautiful and dead. The time for legends is over. Now we build the future, together." The edge of the Typhon sector was not a place of beauty. It was a bleak, star-scarce frontier of cold gas and dark rocks. It was the perfect place for an ambush. The combined fleet waited there, silent and still. It was a strange sight. The Federation ships, even now, had a certain grace. Their clean lines and soft glows were like porcelain figurines. Beside them, the human vessels were stark blocks of armor and angular weapon ports. They looked like tools next to works of art. On the bridge of the Guangedo, Captain Tae-shik Lee watched the mixed formation on his screen. It was not perfect. It was a work in progress. Qatari squadron is holding position, but their formation is too tight, Sumin noted from her station. If they need to scatter, they will crash into each other. "Tell them again," Tae-shik said. "Wide spacing. They are not in a parade." Ji Woo relayed the message. Her voice was patient. She had been doing this for weeks. The human and Federation crews could talk to each other now, but they did not yet think the same way. In the 30 cycles since the alliance was formed, everything had changed, yet nothing felt settled. Human engineers worked in the glittering shipyards of the Federation, helping to bolt heavy, ugly railgun batteries onto elegant hulls. Federation artists visited human ships and were baffled by the plain walls, the simple food, the loud, pounding music the crews listened to. There was respect, but it was the careful respect between 2 very different creatures who shared a cage. Jae Kim stood on the observation deck of a Federation command ship. Counselor Vral floated beside him. Together, they watched the fleet. "They are so loud," Vral hummed, "not for the first time. Even when they are not fighting. Their machines hum differently. Their voices carry. They are used to empty space," Jay said. "They never learned to be quiet for neighbors. And you?" Vral asked. "You are both. Where do you stand, Scholar Kim?" Jay thought about it. He looked at the human ships, feeling a pull of familiarity, of home. Then he looked at the Federation ships, remembering a lifetime of study and admiration for their culture. "I stand right here," he said finally. "In the middle, trying to help each side see the other." On the Guandito, an alarm chimed softly, a different sound from the usual beeps. It was a deep, pulsing tone. Sumin's voice cut through the quiet. Long-range scanner contact. Multiple signatures, emerging from the gravity shadow of the nebula. "It's them. The swarm, main force." The data flowed onto the main screen. The numbers were staggering. This was not a scout fleet. This was an ocean of jagged rock and dark metal, a wave of silent hunger moving toward the heart of the galaxy. Across the fleet, the alert went out. On the Federation ships, there was a scramble, a flutter of anxious energy. On the human ships, there was a shift, a settling. Hatches closed. Systems switched from green to amber. It was the sound of a machine readying itself to work. Admiral Kathar's face appeared on Tae-shik's screen. The old Qatari looked tense, but his eyes were steady. "Captain Lee, the fleet is yours. Give the orders." Tae-shik nodded. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All vessels, this is Lee. Remember your training. Federation wings, hold the high flank. Human core, form the anvil. Let them come to us. No heroics. Just the plan. The swarm advanced. It moved like a storm cloud, blocking out the stars. It did not hail them. It did not change course. It simply came to consume. Here they come, Su-min said. First wave of hunters. Thousands of the small, fast swarm craft detached from the larger masses and surged forward. The old Federation instinct was to fire lasers. Today, they did not. Today, the Federation ships, with their new human-built weapons, held their fire. Wait, Tae-shik said, his eyes on the distance counter. Wait for it. The swarm hunters screened into range. At the last second, Tae-shik said, now. The human fleet erupted. The roar of railguns filled the comms. The space between the fleet and the swarm became a storm of metal. Hunters shattered into dust, but there were too many. Some slipped through. They dove toward the Federation ships on the flank. Qatari squadron, point defense now. Don't try to lead them. Spray the area. Su-min barked over the tactical link. The Qatari ships fired. Their new projectile weapons were clumsy, their aim less perfect than their old lasers. But they fired. Clouds of shrapnel filled space around them. Swarm hunters flew into the clouds and were torn apart. It was messy. It was wasteful. It was alive. Good. Good. Keep firing. Su-min yelled, a fierce grin on her face. The larger swarm motherships moved in. These were mountains of rock and metal. Energy weapons would do nothing. Tae-shik saw them on the screen. Sun Tzu Wing, you are cleared. Fire pattern Kessel. Joan of Arc Wing, target the lead ship's projected path. Full kinetic barrage. From the human fleet, a volley of heavy missiles lanced out. They flew toward the motherships and exploded not with fire, but with a spray of millions of dense rods. At the same time, a concentrated stream of railgun, fire from another group of ships, focused on a single point of the lead mothership. The effect was catastrophic. The rods shredded the surface, and the concentrated fire punched deep. The lead mothership cracked, then broke apart like a dropped stone. Then another. Then a third. The Federation ships, seeing the opening, moved. They did not try to copy the human killing blow. Instead, they used their speed and grace, now armed with human weapons, to dart in and hammer at the smaller swarm vessels, clearing the way. It was not a perfect dance. A Federation ship took a hit, its beautiful hull scarred. A human ship was swarmed, but its heavy armor held as its neighbors blasted the attackers away. They were not one fleet. They were two fleets, fighting side by side. The humans were the hammer, hard and brutal. The Federation was the scalpel, fast and precise. Together, they worked. Che and Vral watched the tactical display. They saw the losses. They saw the struggle. But they saw something else, too. They saw a Qatari ship, burning, being covered by a human vessel that placed itself between the Qatari and the enemy. They saw a human ship with a damaged engine being gently towed to safety by a pair of Ullian craft. They are learning, Jay whispered. Vral watched a human railgun slug tear through a swarm ship, and a Federation missile finish it. They are more than learning, he hummed, a note of awe in his voice. They are becoming something new. The battle did not end with a single blow. It ended with the slow, grinding destruction of the swarm force. When the last enemy ship was a cloud of fragments, the silence returned. It was a different silence. It was not the silence of shock or despair. It was the tired, hard-won silence of a job done. On the bridge of the Gwanggaeto, Tae-shik leaned back. His crew was tired but whole. He looked at the fleet status. There were losses on both sides, but they had held. They had won. Admiral Cathar appeared on the screen. His ship was damaged, but his posture was tall. Captain Lee, the Typhon sector is secure. Shik nodded. It is. Your people fought well, Admiral. They fought bravely. They fought differently, Cathar said. And so did yours. It was effective. A small smile touched Shik's lips. We'll take effective. Across the galaxy, the story would be told. It would not be a simple story. It would not be a legend about silent devourers or shining heroes. It would be a complicated story of two peoples, different in every way, who chose to stand together in the dark. The humans were no longer legends. They were allies. They were neighbors. They were the loud, sturdy, sometimes frightening people who had stepped out of the shadows and taught a peaceful galaxy how to survive. The quiet was over. The future, strange and shared, had begun.